I never thought I'd find myself standing in my parents' living room, watching them calmly tell me that the $150,000 meant for my future was gone, vanished, disappeared, and worst of all, it wasn't stolen by some stranger. It was taken by my own parents and transferred into my sister Sophia's account to help her buy a house with her fiancé. It felt like a punch to the gut. Was that house worth more than my future? My whole body went numb, as my mother, in the same casual tone she'd used to announce what was for dinner, said, "Elizabeth, you're still in school. You can just take out loans like everyone else. You'll pay them off once you start working. There's no need to make a big deal out of this, sweetheart." No need to make a big deal out of it? I tried to stay calm, but my chest tightened as if an invisible rope was squeezing every breath out of me. They had taken the money my grandparents had left for me, the money that was supposed to fund my dreams, the future I had been planning for years. And they didn't see anything wrong with it. My grandparents were old-school Americans who valued education above all else. They always believed that knowledge is the one thing no one can take away from you, and they worked hard to ensure I had a better future. 3 years ago my grandfather passed away after a stroke, and last year my grandmother followed him. On the day she died I spent hours in my tiny rented apartment, rereading every letter she had ever sent me. Her words were always full of love, often accompanied by small checks with notes, like, "This is for your future, Elizabeth. We know you'll do great things." And they really made it happen. When their will was read, I inherited the education fund they had been saving for me for years. A sum that was enough to cover my dream MBA program. My parents were supposed to manage the money until I needed it. I never worried about it. They were my parents. They were supposed to protect my future. But now, I realized they had prioritized my sister over me. Since childhood, Sophia had always been the center of attention. She never had to try, never had to prove herself, never had to struggle. My parents spoiled her unconditionally. She failed her college entrance exams twice, dropped out of med school to study art, then dropped that too. Meanwhile, I graduated at the top of my class with a business degree from a prestigious university and landed a job at a major corporation. My parents' reaction? A shrug. "Elizabeth, you've always been smart, it's not surprising." But Sophia, the moment she mentioned wanting to become a preschool teacher, my parents called it a meaningful career and said it was worth sacrificing everything for. Sophia and her fiancé Daniel weren't poor. Daniel was a manager at a local zoo, and Sophia worked as an assistant director at a small private school. They had stable incomes, but not enough to buy the dream home they kept talking about at every family dinner. They constantly complained about housing prices, about being trapped in the rental cycle, about how they deserved a home of their own. Every dinner at my parents' house turned into a discussion about Sophia's dream house. And me? I never once worried about my MBA fund because it wasn't my parents' money. It was my grandparents' legacy for me. I thought it would be there when I needed it. But I was wrong. 2 weeks ago, I started preparing my MBA applications. I needed to check my fund balance because just the application fees for top schools ran into the thousands. That night, when I asked about it, my father mumbled, "Just submit your applications first and we'll figure it out later." My mother quickly changed the subject, talking about how Sophia and Daniel had found the perfect house but needed a large down payment. My stomach sank. I tried to push away the worst thoughts. Maybe they were just delaying things? Maybe they had put the money somewhere safer? But my gut told me something was wrong. The following week, I went back. This time, I didn't beat around the bush. "Mom, Dad, my money is still there, right?" My mother sighed, as if I had asked something ridiculous. "Elizabeth, I lent it to your sister. Sophia and Daniel need this house. Do you have any idea how high property prices are right now? Without our help, they'd never be able to afford it." I froze. "What?" My father shrugged. "You're still in school, but you already have a stable job. You can take out student loans and pay them off over time. It's not a big deal." I was stunned. They had taken all the money. They had stolen my dream, and they didn't even feel guilty about it. I stared at my parents, waiting for a reasonable explanation. But there was nothing. No remorse, no shame. They just looked at me as if I was overreacting to something trivial. Mom, Dad, this was the money my grandparents left for me. It wasn't yours. My voice wavered, but I forced myself to stay calm. My mother crossed her arms, frowning as if I were a spoiled child making unreasonable demands. Elizabeth? Don't you think Sophia deserves a little help too? You have a good job, a stable career? You can take care of yourself, but Sophia can't. She needs this support. My father nodded in agreement. We're family, sweetheart. Your sister needed the money. Shouldn't we help her? I let out a bitter laugh. Family? That was their excuse? A hollow justification for betraying me? I thought back to the day the will was read. I hadn't expected anything. My grandparents had always lived modestly, frugally, and with strong principles. But they had always emphasized the importance of education. The will was read in a small family gathering. My grandparents' lawyer announced each part of the inheritance. My parents inherited my grandparents' house and a large savings account. Sophia received my grandmother's valuable jewelry collection, items worth tens of thousands of dollars. I was given the education fund. Money my grandparents had saved specifically for me, meant to be used only for my MBA. I had been grateful. I didn't need a house or jewelry. I just wanted the opportunity to pursue my dream, just as my grandparents had wished. My parents were put in charge of managing the fund, but it wasn't theirs. They were only holding it for me until I needed it. At least, that's what I had believed. Now I saw how naive I had been. I had spent my whole life being put second to Sophia. I remembered when I was 10 years old and won a statewide science competition. My award was acknowledged with a brief, "Good job, Elizabeth." But Sophia, all she had to do was scribble a messy drawing, and my mother framed it and hung it in the living room like a masterpiece. When I graduated high school as valedictorian, my parents barely noticed. But when Sophia dropped out of college for the second time, they comforted her with a trip to Florida to help her relax. When I landed a prestigious job, they dismissed it with, "You've always been smart, it's not surprising." But when Sophia announced she wanted to become a preschool teacher, they lost their minds. "That's such a meaningful career. You have such a kind heart, Sophia." I had grown used to it. I had accepted that in my parents' eyes, I was just the responsible one. Sophia was the one who deserved love, protection, and priority. My mother kept talking, as if she were explaining something obvious. "Elizabeth, you have to understand. Sophia has never been as lucky as you. You've always been smart, driven, and had a bright future ahead of you. But Sophia has struggled. We just wanted to help her a little." I clenched my fists, keeping my voice as steady as I could. "What about me?" I asked. "Grandma and Grandpa left that money for me. I planned my future around it. And you took it? Without even asking me?" My mother sighed, as if I were being unreasonable. "You can just take out loans, Elizabeth." A surge of anger flared in my chest. "Not a big deal. You took that money without my permission. It wasn't yours. Grandma and Grandpa saved it for me because they believed in me." My father folded his arms, looking at me as if I were being dramatic. "You don't need to make such a fuss. Are you really going to fight with your family over some money?" I let out a laugh, but there was no humor in it. Some money? This was my entire future. I looked at them, and for the first time I truly saw them. They had never valued me the way they valued Sophia. I had never been their priority. They had always assumed I could handle things on my own. They had always believed I was strong, that I didn't need help. But being strong didn't mean I could be taken advantage of. I fell silent. The anger inside me no longer burned. It was cold, like a storm rolling in. They had stolen my dream. And they felt no guilt. And now, they stood there, looking at me with indifference, as if I were the one in the wrong. But they were mistaken. I was no longer the little girl who once tried so hard to earn their attention. They could ignore me for years if they wanted. But now, they would see me for who I had become. I would make sure of it. I left my parents' house with rage burning inside me. They thought I couldn't do anything. They thought I would give up. They thought I was weak. But they were wrong, and I knew exactly what I had to do next. The next morning, I arrived at the office earlier than usual and sent a short email to Mr. Thompson, a senior executive and my mentor. "Can I meet you this morning? I need your advice." Less than 10 minutes later, his secretary replied, "The office is open, come in when you arrive." I stepped into his office with unwavering determination. If there was anyone who could guide me on the legal side of this, it was him. Mr. Thompson had been in the industry for over 3 decades. He wasn't just a brilliant executive, he had an extensive network, including some of the best attorneys in the city. As I told him everything, he didn't interrupt once. He simply sat there, listening, his sharp eyes filled with understanding. When I finished, he gave a small nod, his voice calm yet commanding. "Elizabeth, this isn't just a financial issue. This is a betrayal, and you have every right to take back what's yours." He pulled a business card from his desk and placed it in front of me. "Wilson and Partners, one of the top law firms in the city. They have a team specializing in inheritance disputes and financial misappropriation. I'll reach out to them personally for you." "But He raised a hand to stop me. "Don't worry about legal fees right now. Focus on gathering evidence. Once you have enough documentation, I promise, you'll have a solid case." I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. But there was one more person I needed to contact. That evening, I searched for Uncle Jake's number. My father's cousin. But nothing like my father. In our family, he was one of the few who had never favored Sophia. He had always followed my career, always encouraged me. I had never asked him for anything before, but this time, I had no choice. I pressed call. After only 2 rings, his voice came through. "Elizabeth, I wasn't expecting your call. What's going on?" I took a deep breath. "Do you have time? I need to talk to you about something serious." Within 20 minutes, we were sitting in a quiet cafe. I laid everything out for him, leaving nothing unsaid. When I finished, Uncle Jake's face darkened. "They did what?" His voice dropped, low and dangerous. "They transferred all of my money to Sophia. No warning, no discussion. And when I demanded it back, they laughed in my face and said I didn't stand a chance if I tried to sue them." A long silence followed. I could see his hands clenching, his eyes sharp with anger. "Do you have any evidence?" I shook my head. "Not yet, just their words, but I need to find proof." Uncle Jake nodded slightly, as if coming to a decision. "I'll handle this. First, I'll hire a forensic accountant to go through their bank transactions. If they moved the money, we'll find it. And, you don't need to worry about legal fees. I'll cover everything." I blinked, almost unable to believe it. "Are you sure? I don't want—" He raised his hand, cutting me off. "Elizabeth, your family. You've worked hard for years, and now you've been robbed outright. Don't worry about the money. I'm going to help you take back what's rightfully yours." The anger inside me was no longer a solitary storm. Now, I had a powerful ally. I wasn't going to let this go so easily. And my parents were about to realize that. When Uncle Jake provided a detailed financial report to the legal team at Wilson and Partners, everything became crystal clear. My parents had systematically taken my money over the course of several months. There was no way for them to deny it. They knew I had enough evidence to take them to court. And that's when they tried a different tactic, bargaining with me. That night, I received a call from an unknown number. "Elizabeth, it's your mother." I said nothing. I wanted to see what they would try next. She cleared her throat, trying to keep her voice calm. "Your father and I have been thinking a lot. We don't have to take this to court. You know, lawsuits only hurt the family." I let out a dry laugh. "Really? So when you took my money, that didn't hurt me?" She ignored my question. "We can settle this privately. Your father and I are willing to return a portion of the money." I cut her off immediately. "A portion?" I scoffed. "You took all of the money my grandparents left me, and now you want to give back a little? And expect me to stay quiet?" There was silence. Then my father's voice came through, no longer gentle. Elizabeth, are you really going to sue your own parents? Do you think anyone will take your side when this goes public? The whole family will turn against you. I felt the fire inside me reignite. Oh, really? Let's see how they react when they find out you've been lying to them for years. And with that, I hung up. They had lost their only chance to settle this peacefully. Not long after my parents' call, Sophia sent me a long email. Subject: Elizabeth, please think this through. I opened it and read. I didn't know about this, I swear. Mom and Dad told me it was their savings for me. If I had known it was yours, I never would have taken it. I clenched my fists. Lies. She knew. Maybe not at first. But she knew. The moment she received the money. And more importantly, she still used it. I forwarded Sophia's email to my lawyer. It was proof that she was involved, and she wouldn't be able to deny responsibility. As the financial investigation continued, the legal team uncovered something even more shocking. My parents hadn't just stolen my MBA fund. They had been misusing my grandmother's assets before she passed away. They had started moving money from her accounts while she was still alive, taking advantage of the trust she had placed in them. A chill ran down my spine. They hadn't just betrayed me. They had betrayed my grandmother. When my lawyer submitted this report to the court, the judge immediately ordered a deeper investigation into their finances. With these new findings, the court intervened in Sophia and Daniel's home purchase. Their financial records were scrutinized, and then, the bank discovered signs of fraud in their mortgage application. Daniel panicked. He wanted nothing to do with legal trouble. I heard that he had a heated argument with Sophia, and then, the inevitable happened. He started to doubt her. You knew that money didn't belong to your parents, didn't you? I could imagine Daniel confronting her. And I knew she wouldn't have a reasonable answer. It wasn't just me. Our relatives were starting to see the truth too. Some of them called me, their voices filled with doubt. Elizabeth, did you really agree to give up your tuition money for Sophia? I smirked. Who told you that? Your parents. They said you willingly gave up the money to help Sophia buy a house. They also said you were just jealous, because your sister was about to have a home of her own. I let out a cold laugh. Do you want the truth? I never agreed to anything. They took my money, and now I'm taking back what's mine. Their lies were starting to unravel. Family members began asking questions. They no longer trusted my parents. And I didn't stop. My lawyers had prepared a solid case. I was taking them to court. And I knew they were terrified. My parents had never believed I would actually go through with it. On the day of the ruling, I sat upright in my seat, watching my parents stand before the judge. They looked more exhausted than I had ever seen them. Throughout the trial, my lawyers had presented clear evidence, proof that my parents had embezzled my MBA fund, transferred the money into Sophia's account, and engaged in financial fraud, even before my grandmother's passing. The judge had no patience for them. Your actions are not only a betrayal of your own daughter but also a disgrace to the final wishes of the deceased. Her voice echoed across the courtroom. I glanced at my parents. My mother hung her head low, while my father clenched his fists. Then, the final verdict was delivered. They were ordered to repay the full $150,000 along with penalties. They were held legally responsible for the financial mismanagement of my grandmother's estate. If they couldn't pay, they would have to sell their assets to cover the debt. My mother collapsed into her chair, completely broken. I didn't look away. This was justice. 2 months later, their house was seized for sale. The very house they had inherited from my grandparents, the one they had once proudly called the symbol of their happy family, was no longer theirs. I heard they had desperately tried to borrow money from friends and relatives, but after the truth was exposed, no one was willing to help them. People distanced themselves. Neighbors whispered about them whenever they stepped outside. One of my mother's old friends once sent me a message. Elizabeth, your mother seems really devastated, but honestly, she brought this on herself. I didn't reply. They deserved every consequence. Sophia lost her job just a week after the court ruling. When the school board discovered that she had received money from fraudulent sources, they quickly reviewed her ethical standing. A preschool teacher involved in a financial fraud case? No parent wanted their child to be taught by someone like that. Her termination was immediate. A former colleague of Sophia's messaged me. Sophia's school held an emergency meeting. The parents are furious. They're calling her a liar and saying she's untrustworthy. And just like that, Sophia's dream of a meaningful career was gone. Daniel wasn't doing any better. As soon as the financial scandal broke, the zoo where he worked suspended him while investigating whether he had been involved in the fraud. I heard he was furious when the bank withdrew their mortgage approval, forcing them to return the apartment they had just moved into. And then the inevitable happened. Their engagement fell apart. A mutual friend happened to witness them arguing in a cafe. Daniel was yelling at Sophia. "Why did you lie to me? You knew that money wasn't your parents'. If I lose my job over this, it's your fault." Sophia screamed back in desperation. "You're a coward. Why aren't you standing by me? This is my family's business. Who are you to judge?" But Daniel had had enough. That very night, he packed his things and left the apartment. Their engagement was officially over. I wasn't surprised. They shared the same ambition, but had no loyalty to each other. The consequences of the trial weren't just financial. They lost their reputations. My father had once been respected as a businessman in the community. Now, no one wanted anything to do with him. His golf club revoked his membership. My mother, who had been the treasurer of the local women's association, was forced to resign. Old friends avoided them like the plague. One acquaintance told me, "Elizabeth, your parents barely leave the house anymore. Everyone knows what they did. They have no one left on their side." I felt no pity. They did this to themselves. 3 months after the lawsuit ended, I officially received my acceptance letter from the MBA program I had dreamed of. My company stood by me the entire time. Mr. Thompson told me, "The way you handled this shows that you have the qualities of a true leader." And most importantly, I was no longer bound to my parents. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their fake love. They could live with the consequences of their choices. As for me, I was moving forward, stronger than ever. 3 months after the court ruling, I officially received the full MBA fund back, along with additional compensation from my parents. The money had returned to where it rightfully belonged. But I hadn't just reclaimed my money. I had reclaimed my future. One early morning, I opened my email, my heart pounding, as I saw a message from the university I had dreamed of attending. I took a deep breath before clicking it open. "We are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted into our MBA program with a scholarship for outstanding achievement." I read that line 3 times. Then, laughter bubbled up inside me. A feeling of pure relief filling my chest. My parents had tried to steal my opportunity. But in the end, I hadn't just taken it back. I had earned it, through my own efforts. I immediately called Mr. Thompson. "I knew you'd do it, Elizabeth." His voice brimmed with pride. Then, he added, "And you should know that after you finish your MBA, an executive position is waiting for you at the company." I froze. "What do you mean?" He smiled. "You've proven yourself. You have strategic thinking, decisiveness, and most importantly, you don't give up when faced with adversity. That's what makes a true leader." I could hardly believe my ears. I hadn't just won back my MBA fund. I had secured a strong career path before the program had even begun. Uncle Jake had been by my side throughout this entire journey. When I told him about the scholarship and the promotion offer, he laughed. "Now do you see how valuable you are?" I nodded, truly grateful. Then he added, "But don't stop there. After you graduate, we'll talk about investments. I want you to expand your career, not just within this company, but beyond." I felt my heart race with excitement. This wasn't just a victory. This was a beginning. With the compensation from my parents and my current salary, I decided to reward myself with something I truly deserved: a new apartment. I didn't buy a lavish mansion. I chose a high-end apartment in a quiet, safe neighborhood, a place where I could finally enjoy my life, It had a spacious balcony overlooking a park, with sunlight streaming through the windows every morning. It wasn't just a place to live, it was a symbol of my freedom. And the first thing I did when I moved in, I blocked my parents' numbers. No calls, no emails, no messages. I owed them nothing. They had chosen to cast me aside. Now, I was simply returning the favor. I heard about them through others. My parents were forced to leave the house they once took pride in. They moved into a smaller apartment, withdrawn from society, because everyone around them now knew the truth. No one trusted them anymore. The women's group my mother used to be part of refused to let her rejoin. My father's golf club revoked his membership. Even the friends they once considered close gradually distanced themselves. A relative told me, "Elizabeth, your parents aren't the same anymore. Your mother barely leaves the house. Your father spends hours sitting alone in a cafe, staring into the distance." I didn't react. I felt nothing anymore. They had made their choices with full intent. Now, they were living with the consequences. One Sunday morning, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, sipping my coffee. I gazed into the distance, savoring the peace I had reclaimed for myself. They could call me a traitor. They could drown in their belated regrets. But I didn't care anymore. I had taken back my life, and no one would ever take it from me again. Elizabeth's story is not just a legal battle, it's a journey of reclaiming self-worth. It highlights a harsh reality. Not everyone prioritizes family, and not every family deserves unconditional loyalty. Her parents' betrayal proves that greed and favoritism can destroy even the strongest bonds. But Elizabeth's triumph stands as proof that justice, resilience, and independence will always be the foundation for reclaiming what rightfully belongs to us. What are your thoughts on family, justice, and fairness? Have you ever witnessed favoritism or injustice in your own life? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family and life.